of all the new mechanics that they've added in the downloaded content of The Long Dark, which new mechanic is the one you like the best?
And that's what we're going to be discussing today. So, Kirk, which new mechanic is your favorite?
So by mechanic, we're talking about like Safehouse customization,
Yeah.
cooking, tails,
Trader.
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 Okay, I want to make sure we're on the right page here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna say, although I haven't had a ton of experience with it, a lot of them I've like touched, but not like fully fleshed out to their nth degree.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I think I have been enjoying the most is Safe House customization, and I'm
Oh, really?
enjoying it more from a functionality than I am from like doing the decoration. Don't get me wrong, everybody. The people that are doing all these decoration things, it's amazing. I'm glad you have the patience to do it. They look great. I don't. I don't
Yeah.
have that kind of patience. I'm amazed with people that do. What I've been enjoying about the Safe House customization is just being able to turn a particular location into a very functioning area. A good
Mm-hmm.
example for me would be that I have kind of made the farmhouse in Pleasant Valley my main base on the current Stalker run I'm recording. And I've ripped out all the furniture and I've torn everything down. I've added a bed to the downstairs so I don't have to play look for the bed at night, even though we can kind of cheat now with, the night vision, but I still don't like using that unless I have to. But
Mm-hmm.
so I put a bed downstairs. I've got the work tables and what was the place where the fireplace is and stuff, just to be more functional. And so I kind of like the idea of the Safe House customization things to make bases more functional and less cluttered. And there's a lot of clutter to deal with, and it's like another good example would be the Barker's farm in Milton, where that chair and table have been in the way for years. It's nice to be able to take that stuff out and make an area more workable.
You mean Paradise Meadows, where like the
Paradise
chair is
Meadows,
like,
yes,
yeah,
it
right in the middle
drives
of
us
the
all
kitchen.
crazy.
Yeah. Oh my
And you
God.
and you
Yes.
stumble and trip over that thing constantly. So, yeah, I'm enjoying that part of it for that functionality. It's nice to be able to go into Gray Mothers, go into whatever building, and just clear out the nonsense, make it so that it's a good working space to play the game from, and so I've been enjoying that the most. So I rebound the question to you: what new mechanic are you fond of?
Well, there's lots of great ones, but I think personally for me, it's going to be the cooking. Because for the longest time, it was just like, cook this random can of food, cook this piece of meat. And now you have, more options. Like you can make pancakes, you can make bannocks, you can make soup, you can make stew, you can make all of these different things now. And I think it's really cool just to have that and to have all these options. And then plus, like a lot of the new foods, they give buffs and things like that. So yeah,
It's
I really
definitely a
like that
lot
a
more
lot.
complex than
Mm-hmm.
what it used to be. And
Yeah, you got to think about it a little bit more.
yeah, because certain things can take on an importance at that point, because making, say, venison pie can help you lift more, or rose hips, and putting those in the pie can, give you the same kick as a coffee does. So
Mm-hmm.
there's certain perks to that make those little recipes is like, you know what, I don't want to use this flour because I'm going to be doing this thing where I need this perk, and that
Mm-hmm.
part of it is a nice aspect to it. So yeah, it is a good mechanic.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. The only thing I don't like is the thing that they recently added where you can't use the ruined ingredients. Um,
That is
I think
troublesome.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's workarounds for it, but I think it kind of almost ruined like the longer game in that sense what they did that. So maybe they need to turn like the DK down on cooking ingredients or something like that. And I understand they're probably trying to push you to go get like flour and some stuff from the trader, but I don't. Also, you can turn the trader off. So I might be
Yeah, if
playing a
you don't have that
game.
on,
Then what? I'm kind
yeah.
of SOL, and I think like the decay rate on like Interloper, and then like even there's some custom modes that are set. The decay rate is set even higher than that. By the
And
time you get to a good 100 days, everything is ruined. So then
it's
what?
also kind of a shame too because again, like in a longer run, you may not go to a particular region until very late. It might be 150 days before you reach, you know, this particular location because you, for whatever reason, and you find cooking materials and they're ruined and you can't use them. But yet,
Mm-hmm.
on the same note, you can cook a bear and let it sit in the snow for 4 years and
Yeah.
be perfectly fine eating it. So there's a
Yep.
little bit of a, if you're going to allow for this, then you should allow for the use of, cooking. Maybe, and again, this may be too difficult to do, but maybe it loses calories.
Yeah, yeah, that would be good. And I mean, I'm kind of happy that you mentioned the meat because I think that's coming. I think the handling the cooking ingredients, I think that was the first step. And I think them adjusting the meat is going to be next because you have the curing box now.
I could see that happening. The curing box
So,
does, force you to do
hmm
a little more prepping for long term. And I
yeah,
think
and
that's actually,
salt,
yeah, I think
salt is
that's actually a good
harvestable.
mechanic in the cooking realm because you can't just do like what I mentioned. It's so often with long term runs, once you get a bear or moose, you're set for months, of
Oh
food
yeah.
there.
Or you go to every region and you kill one bear and you stock it outside of your base, and then you can just move around the world and you'll have food for a
And
really long time.
and then at that point you can eat the wolves and
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of nickel and dime, so to speak, your way through a region with the small foods and know that you've got this big meal waiting for you back at home, no problem. So it wouldn't hurt my feelings any if they said, okay, now once food is ruined, you can't eat it. It would be an interesting way to go, okay, now you have to plan for the future. And so now you need to cure the meat if you want it to last longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
that's my prediction though.
I kind of think this is also, and I don't really want to get into speculation here, but I also kind of think that the curing box is kind of a precursor to what we might be seeing in Black Frost coming,
Mm-hmm.
and so, along with some of the other things, and we can get into that into another discussion. But
Yeah.
I think the prepping for doing curing and ruined foods and stuff is kind of getting us um, used to the fact that we're not going to be able to do this in the next game, and we're going to have to play different.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that totally makes sense to me as well. I think the trader was kind of like a precursor to things that we're going to see in Blackrock or Black Frost as well. So,
It's a way to train
yeah.
your audience
Mm-hmm.
that things are coming to a different realm in the
Mm-hmm.
future.
Yeah.
And that's why I think some of these mechanics that we're talking about being favorites or just in general are part of that. Let's train our audience that in the future these mechanics are going to be a part of your life, that you're going to have to, you're going to have to set up your house in a certain way for it to be functional. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
have to cure foods and you're going to have to cook things. You can't just, you know, open a can of sardines and wolf them down because
Yep.
they may not be edible at that point. They may still be
Mm-hmm.
frozen at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyways, we got off on a bit of a tangent. Um, we're kind of gonna rein us in a little bit. So other new mechanics then. So we both established our favorites. Maybe we should talk about the others a little bit. Like, how do you feel about the trader, for example?
I'm okay with the trader. I have not had a ton of experience with it. I'm looking forward to getting to that point with the stalker run I'm on, and then of course with Dead World, it's not on at all. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with it, and I think the reason I don't have a problem with it is that it's there if you want to interact with it. If you don't have to. And again, I think this is also yet a mechanic of teaching us something for the future, but without getting down that rabbit hole. The trader is an interesting way to bring about these items that are ruined. It's like, okay, you need flour, you're going to have to trade for it. You need X, you're going to have to trade for it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's going to bring about that dynamic of if you want to be able to make these, these meals, you're going to need to interact with him in order to accomplish that that goal.
Yeah, that would make sense to me for sure. I mean, it does make sense though. I mean, like, again, I do have my issues with like the cooking stuff deteriorating, but it also makes sense on the other hand.
It's kind of a balance.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think, and you can speak to this better than I can even, that Interloper was meant to be this crazy hard mode that people
Yep.
weren't supposed to live forever and ever. And yet here we are. People do 500 days, 1,000 days,
10,000.
tens of thousands of days. So, between the ability to do hibernation and the healing, you sleep in bed overnight and magically you feel better. Some of those parts are a little troublesome. So I could see them tweaking this as they go forward of, you're not going to be able to heal overnight. You're not going to be able to, make meals out of stuff that, would essentially make a billy goat puke. You can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's just a change of the way we're going to be playing in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. I'm kind of lukewarm on the trader at the moment, to be honest. There are things that I like about it, and there are things that I don't like. I think it's cool, that you can get renewable stuff from him, and that he has special items and things like that. I'm still not completely sold over the cost of items, and I mean, you can get them lowered by completing his quest line, and I don't want to spoil for anyone, but I'm not sure the cost of completing the quest line is worth it to me personally. So that's
It
kind of
is
the
a
issue
high
that I
price to
have.
pay.
Hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
very high price to pay. And the only advantage you can get on that is if you know what the quest is ahead of time. So like let's say if you're starting a new run and you've already completed that quest,
Hmm.
you can kind of pull, know what you're looking for. So when you run
Hmm.
into these bunkers that have this information, maybe you mark them with spray paint in a particular map. Maybe you put it in your notes, so that way you
Hmm.
know where to go. When you're doing it the first time, you're hunting and searching for these, and it can be a daunting task. It's definitely one of those very long-winded, you know, uh, kind of play fetch type deals that we see in a lot of games.
Hmm.
It's busy work, I guess would be the.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's not really what I'm talking about. Like, yeah, I understand like going and marking out the bunkers beforehand, and you could definitely do that. I'm talking about like his very last quest to get his trust rating all the way up.
Yeah,
Uh, what you need to lose to accomplish that. Again, I don't know. It's worth if it's worth it to
it's
me
a high
personally.
price.
I'm trying not to spoil it for the
Yeah,
audience
we
or
don't want to
anyone
do
who
that.
might be. Yeah. So do we have any other new mechanics?
The only other one that I think is worth noting, and I say this with kind of this weird kind of, it doesn't, I don't know that it necessarily makes any sense, and that is the mechanic of the caches that you can find with the radio. that are
Yeah.
like buried everywhere.
Mhm.
There's already a bit of a disbelief that, they were able to build these very elaborate, preppers caches throughout the world with such limited ability to move materials around. Then you get into
Mhm.
the bunkers with the tails, and these things are even more elaborate. And again,
Mhm.
roadways and things are very, in short supply to be able to get these supplies to this. So the monumental task of building these particular items would have been just a crazy endeavor. But then why would you have all these little fancy caches everywhere of things? And sometimes they're not even filled with anything that would call it like emergencies. I could see if you found one of the things and it had like matches and some food or, like an MRE or whatever, it wouldn't make sense. But
Mhm.
they just seem to be very randomly placed throughout the world, and they're kind of odd and they just don't fit in a weird way. So I would say out of like all the mechanics that I puzzle me and scratch my head, it would be those little cache things from the radio.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do like how the tales are done, quite honestly, though, through the radio. I think that's a really good method of storytelling because it's like you have to go and hunt things down and you can choose to ignore them or not. It's not right there in your face. And I almost wish the caches you find with the radio were like that as well. Like maybe there was like a little story about, the person who hit this cashier and why these items and why this location and things like that. I think that would help to kind of remedy some of that weirdness with it as well. Like, okay, there's a random thing of flares here. No one knows why, but they're here.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's full of weird stuff. Maybe
Mm,
another thing they could have done, and granted, it would have made it a little more complicated, but it would have been great for maybe adding it to the higher levels. Like I know in the early going, the tails weren't even supposed to be part of Interloper because of the lack of loot, but they could
hmm.
have twisted that by making it more difficult and
Yeah.
add a little bit of loot to it by okay, you've got to find these little mini caches because now those caches have keys or
Hmm.
codes or things. You can't just go to the bunker because you found it with the radio. You got to go
Yeah.
find the two codes that are buried in with these little mini caches that you find. So
Hmm.
they could have added, layers of detail or more parts to it by having to be out in the Aurora more in a dangerous situation to go find the key and the code to get into that bunker.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I think that adds a good amount of difficulty too for like what you were saying for like the higher difficulties, make it a bit more challenging rather than just because what I do on Stalker now is I know where all the bunkers are, so it's like I go there in the day and I just camp out
Camp out.
until it's nighttime, and then I just walk right into the
I
bunker.
I did the same thing
So,
just recently. I did the same thing, camped out. So I get it. Stuff. So it'd be neat to see them maybe add a layer of difficulty. Then if you do put
mhm.
some goodies in there for that group, they paid for it.
Yep. Yeah, I completely agree. Great idea. Oh, so one new mechanic that we haven't talked about and I wanted to bring up before we wrap up here is the new harvesting mechanics. Um, I
Oh,
don't
good point. Good
th-
point.
think it's as intuitive as it was before. Like, I know they added this nice new animation and everything, but the ability to cancel out of harvesting really annoys me. Um, just because it's like if you cancel, say you're gonna harvest a kilogram of meat, like I understand they did that to try and get rid of shredding or whatever, but if you cancel out right now, it just you don't get any of the meat, even if you spent like 98% of the time of the harvesting time, you don't get anything for it, and then you gotta go and you gotta redo the harvesting. But then again, they try to do it to get rid of shredding, and I understand that, but you can still shred. You just do it differently now. So,
Yeah, and it's funny too because if you
yeah.
do a quarter, if you quarter the animal, you can cancel out of it and pick up where you
Yeah.
left off. I don't
Mm-hmm.
understand why you wouldn't be able to do the same thing with a harvest. let's
Mm-hmm.
say you're going to harvest a moose and you're going to take a pretty good chunk of meat off of it, 6 or 8 kilos, and you're halfway through it and you cancel. You should have either 4 kilos done, or you should be able to pick up where you left off because you can do it with a quarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, either one of those would have been fine. Like, like you said, either being able to finish up what you were harvesting and maybe you have like 2 minutes left or something, instead of just losing all of your progress. It can be kind of frustrating.
It's head scratching for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, but completely forgot about that one. I'm glad I remembered it there at the end, because that's definitely a new one.
Very good point.
Hmm. Yep, but I think with that one, I'll leave everyone with the question: what is your new favorite mechanic that's been brought on either recently in the base game or either through the DLC? We'd love to hear from you. And thank you all so very much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we hope to see you next time. Bye bye.